So now it's time to begin the second half of lesson 5.2. We're going to start with all right, so as we review these, then we start with the idea of numerical expressions. Once again, numerical just simply means numbers, which is telling us that it's not algebra. There aren't any letters that are put inside for missing numbers. And an expression is a math problem that we have to solve that doesn't already have an answer. That's important to understand the difference between an equation, because here before too long we're going to get into equations, and that's a completely different math process that we need to follow. In order to do numerical expressions correctly, we must follow the order of operations. If you don't know the order of operations yet, and there were a lot of you that had questions, but you didn't even have these steps written down on your assignments on the previous lesson, then you're just hurting yourself. Please write down at least the letters so you can get them in a process in your mind to where you'll remember them. Ask for several extra presents. Absolute values, square roots, exponents, and parentheses must all be done first. Then we go in and we do all multiplication and division from left to right. The only thing that we're going to be left with mathematical function-wise is adding and subtracting from left to right. So we start looking. Do we have any absolute values or square roots? No, because we haven't added those into our lessons yet. But we do have exponents and parentheses. So let's start with our exponents. 8 squared, or 8 to the second power, tells you to multiply 8 by itself 2 times. So 8 times 8 is 64. And then I have parentheses. Basic subtraction. What is 15 minus 7? 15 minus 7 is 8. Now what do? And this is where a lot of you are messing up on your previous assignment. And I was very specific on the previous video. You have to be systematic. You have to leave enough room. You have to drop everything else down. If you continue to do it sporadically around your paper and not build down your paper, then you're going to make a lot of mistakes because you're not going to know where things belong. Once you have created your second math problem now we start looking at the math that we need to do. I must do multiplication and division from left to right. And in that case, then, I can see that I have 64 divided by 8 times 2. I don't want to multiply by 2 first because I have to go from left to right. So I'm going to take 64 and I'm going to divide it by 8. 64 divided by 8 is 8. Then I bring everything else down. I continue to do multiplication and division from left to right. I see that I do have multiplication. So 8 times 2 is 16. Then I bring everything else down. Now I have 16 minus 9, my last step, addition and subtraction from left to right, and 16 minus 9 is indeed 7. If I don't follow my order of operations and I get confused on what I'm doing, then we could have some major problems. So it's important that we follow the order of operations each and every time. When I look at this one, I have parentheses and exponents together. So I have to start with what's inside the parentheses first, and that is exponents. So I'm going to have 5 times 5, which is 25, and then I'm going to bring down what's inside my parentheses because I have to do that next. 25 minus 12 gives me 13. Now I can drop everything else down in the same order. I have 4 times 13 now, minus 6. Now, don't write this down because this is where some of us get confused, and I want to make sure that we have clarity, right? If it's not clarity, it's all fuzzy. Once again, don't write this down because this is what some people did on the previous assignment. Right? You didn't want to multiply 4 by 13 because those are big numbers. So you said, well, I'm going to make a smaller number. 13 minus 6 is 7, and I know that 4 times 7 is 28. Well, those would be true if that was truly following the order of operations, if there were parentheses there that had set it apart. So if our confusion is 28, let's see if we get the same answer by doing it in the correct order, which is 4 times 13 first, because I have to do multiplication and division from left to right. Pick up my handy dandy calculator. If you don't know that 4 times 13 is 52, then you can type it in and you're going to see it's 52. And then when I subtract my 6, because my last step is addition and subtraction from left to right, then I see that I get 46. Did I get the right answer when I did it in the wrong order? No, absolutely not. So I must follow the order of operations to get the correct answer to my math problem. All right, so I want you to try this one before we move on to the second half of this lesson. So answer this question, then check with me and make sure you have the correct steps. So hopefully going through it, you thought, okay, absolute value, square roots, exponents, and parentheses. I know I have to start with my parentheses and my exponents. 15 plus 3 is 18, and 3 squared, 3 to the second power, that's 3 times 3, which is 9. And then you brought everything else down, right? So you kept your 9 plus 7 times, and then you dropped down your division, and then you thought, all right, so now I have to do multiplication and division from left to right. So you had to start with 7 times 18. 7 times 18 is 126. Then you brought everything else down. You take 126 divided by 9. Why did you do that one next? Because we're still doing multiplication and division from left to right. So 126 divided by 9 is 14. Then I bring down my 9 plus, and when I take 9 plus 14, then I'm doing my last step of adding and subtracting from left to right, and I get 23. Did you get to the right answer? Did you figure out why you didn't get to the right answer if you didn't? Well, if you can't figure it out, come and ask, and I'll help you through it. Now, before we go on into the second half of this lesson, I want to do one more review with you simply because this has some differences to it. We have a couple of exponents, but that's not the big deal. But I do have a fraction and I do have a decimal. And some of you prefer to work with fractions. Some of you prefer to work with decimals. So how do I know which one to use? Well, notice in your order of operations, your last step is always to add and subtract from left to right. And I can see a subtraction sign with my decimal at the end. So that indicates to me that I want to switch it to a decimal as I'm working. We'll get to that when it's our time. So let's start with our square roots, exponents, parentheses, absolute value. Okay, so I have 6 squared and I have 3 squared. So I have 2 of them. Let's see. Okay, so 6 squared is 6 times 6, and that's 36. 3 squared is 3 times 3, so that's 9. All right, now, once again, I'm subtracting by a decimal, so we might as well divide by a decimal also. Go ahead and change that into a decimal so I don't have to worry about fractions. Well, let's see, 3/4, 3/4. That's the same as 3/4, right? Because we know a dollar is broken up into 4 different quarters, and if I have 3 of them, that's 75 cents. So 3/4 is the same as 0.75. All right, easy enough. I have a division sign, and I have parentheses. I bring everything else down then. Drop my other division sign in front, I bring down my minus 2.4. All right, so now we're going to divide. If I take my parentheses, because I have to do that first, which number goes inside my division box? Hopefully you thought the 9, the first one, right? So I'm going to divide 9 by 0.75. Once again, we can't divide by a decimal. So quick review, we have our OOU, our over, up. And if that seems new to you, you need to go back and do some reviewing and looking up these lessons because we taught it over in Unit 3. We're now in Unit 5. And these are important to understand and not have to go back and review every single time from this point forward. But I cannot divide by a decimal. You have this picture that I just brought up. Should be in your math folder because I printed it out in color for you so you would have a good copy and you could look at it at any time. So my O, I cannot have a decimal on the outside. Tells me I have to move it over however many times needed to make it a whole number. In this case, I have to move it twice to the right. Now I have my second O. So OO, over, have to do the same thing on the inside. Don't just put it in front of the digit. It's a whole number, so it has to start behind it. I have to move it to the right 2 times also because that's what I did on the outside. And since there's nothing there, I need to fill in with zeros. Then I do my OOU, I move it straight up. Now I can divide. Will 75 go into 9? No. Will 75 go into 90? Yes. How many times? Once, because 1 times 75 is 75. When I subtract, I get 15. I bring down my 0. 75 goes into 150. There's 75 cents. How many groups of it in $1.50? Well, there's 2 of them because 2 times 75, if you don't know, pick up your handy dandy calculator and check, but that is 150. So we have a remainder of 0. So now we have found inside of our parentheses is equal to 12, and now we have to bring everything else down. Now we have to do multiplication and division from left to right. I have 36 divided by 12. In my handy dandy calculator, I can type that in, or I can put a division box. 36 divided by 12 is going to be 3. And I'm going to subtract my 2 4/10 from it. Can I subtract whole numbers and decimals? Can I subtract decimals? All of that is yes. How do I do it? I start by lining up my decimals. Well, there's a decimal on the 2.4, but there's not on the 3. So I have to add a decimal and fill in with a 0. Right? I can't just put the 3 underneath the 4 and then try to subtract it that way because that's not what it says. I have a whole number of 3, so I'm going to make it 3.0, and then I can subtract my 2.4 from it. I line up my decimals, and I bring it down, and then I subtract. Well, if I hold up 0 fingers, I can't take 4 from it, so I'm going to borrow. 3 becomes 2, and the 0 becomes 10, and 10 minus 4 is 6. 2 minus 2 is 0. I don't need that because I don't say 0 and 6/100ths, or excuse me, 6/10ths. Once again, I'm not going to count wrong if you put a 0 in front. But your final answer is just 0.6 or 6/10. We got this, right? Order of operations, basic math, just going step by step. Now we have to be able to write the numerical expressions. We have to write a math problem with all of the information that's being indicated. So here's what it says. Going to that second paragraph. Suppose Mariana and her friends are buying snacks at a hockey game. Hot dogs cost $4, boxes of popcorn cost $2, and drinks cost $2.50. The expression below represents the total cost of 4 hot dogs, 3 boxes of popcorn, and 2 drinks. So notice how they have color coded this for you, right? It helps you understand what we're doing, and we need to understand the order of operations. So if I have in orange, hot dogs cost $4 a piece, and I'm buying 4 hot dogs. And then I have my boxes of popcorn, which cost $2 a piece, but I'm buying 3 boxes of popcorn. And my drinks are $2.50 a piece, but I'm buying 2 drinks. Then I have to create this math problem because I want to find out how much money the total cost was. Well, total tells me I'm adding them together, but I need to know how much is 4 hot dogs at $4 a piece, and 3 boxes of popcorn at $2 a piece, and 2 drinks at $2.50 a piece. So that's where I begin to add my own parentheses in my numerical expressions, in my math problems that I am personally creating. So how much are the hot dogs? I put the cost and how many I'm buying. I'm going to add that to how much is the popcorn. I'm going to take the $2 and multiply it by how many I'm buying. And I'm going to add to that the amount of drinks. So take the cost of the drinks, multiply by how many I'm buying. So being able to follow this process helps us create not only just writing the expression, but then getting to the final answer. So once again, on your assignment, you're going to be asked to not just find the answer, but to also write the numerical expression. And it's important to be able to know the setup. So when I'm given these word problems, don't let them confuse you. Just mark them, put them together. You can put circles around them and boxes around them, however you need to mark them so that they're paired up. In the book, they show different colors, so we're going to show different colors. So we have lotion, and we can see that it costs $5 per lotion, and then we look at how many lotions we're buying. We're buying 5 of them. Candles are $7.80 a piece. How many are we buying? We're buying 2. And then our lip balm is $2.49 a piece. How many are we buying? We're buying 4. So we want an expression that's going to find the total cost. And total, if you look on your words and math sheet, we can see the total is adding together. So when we write our expressions, we're looking for the cost of all the lotions, the cost of all the candles, the cost of all the lip balms, adding them together. So in the book, it shows you that you're going to take 5 and write it as 5 squared. Now, personally, I don't want to do that. I want to make it easier so that I know what my steps are going to be. If I know that it costs $5 and I'm buying 5 of them, I'm just going to put 5 times 5. When it comes to the cost of the candles, I know I'm getting 2 of those at $7.80 a piece. And the lip balm, I know I'm buying 4 of them at $2.49 a piece. And once I do what's inside the parentheses, then I can add those together. So finding the answer then is solving for the parentheses first. 5 times 5 is what? Well, 5 times 5 is 25. Then I would advise you have your handy dandy calculator and take 7.80 or 7.8 multiplied by 2, and you're going to find that that's 15.6, or since it's money, $15.60. And multiplying the 4 and the $2.49, you're going to get 9.96. So you would have to add decimals and line them up and add them all together, or you can just take your handy dandy calculator, because the book already gives it to you, and add them together, and you're going to see that you do indeed, get $50.56. Right? So what you're being asked to do is be able to identify the numerical expression, and then at times. So on this one, we're given the information, and we have to first multiple choice figure out which expression to use. Then part B is to find the total cost. So let's read it first. It says tickets to a play cost $10.50 for adult members of the theater, $19.95 for adult non-members, and $8 for students. Suppose 4 non-members, 2 members, and 8 students are buying tickets to the play. Which expression could be used to find the total cost of the tickets? Now, forewarning, they're always going to try to trick you on these. Don't let them trick you, right? So if you like to color code or you mark it in some way, just make sure you're matching up the correct information, because the cost for the tickets they put in a different order than how many tickets, part A, are being sold. Because when I first look, it says $10.50 for adult members, but I'm not given my member number of tickets first. I'm given it second. So make sure that I'm matching them up correctly. The $19.95 for adult non-members is where the 4 comes in. And then the students are $8 for 8 students. So I have to make sure that I'm doing the right steps in my math. When I look at the first one, am I buying 4 of all the different types of tickets? No. So that one doesn't make any sense. That cannot possibly be it. For part B, it says I'm going to multiply 4 times 1995 and 2 times 1050. Does that match up to what I said? Yeah, it does. So if there are 2 at $10.50, but C doesn't have that and D does. So now we're between B and D. All right. How many tickets are for the adult non-members? Well, that's 4 at $19.95, and they both have that. So now we go over to the students. Am I going to do 8 squared, or am I going to do 8 to the 8th power? Well, it doesn't say do 8 to the 8th power, does it? No, it says that I'm going to have 8 tickets that are $8 a piece, because 8 squared looks like 8 times 8. 8 to the 8th power looks like 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. That's a lot. That'd be really expensive tickets for all of those 6th graders. So we know that we need to follow the format or the expression for part B. And then I have to do the math. So 1995 times 4 gives me $79.80. And 1050 times 2, so I'm going to add that amount to the 79.80, which is 21. And then the 8 squared, or 8 times 8, that's going to be 64. I'm going to add it to that. When I add all of those together, I find out the total cost of the ticket is $164.80. So it's just going step by step to create and figure out how to answer the problems. All right, so we're going to work through one more, and the lesson will be yours, and then you can come and get your assignment. This one says, at a summer camp, you can buy clothing embroidered with camp logo. Short sleeve t-shirts are $15 each, shorts are $18 each, and long sleeve t-shirts are $25 each. During the final week of summer, the clothing is marked down to 3/4 the original price. You can buy 2 short sleeve t-shirts, 1 pair of shorts, and 3 long sleeve t-shirts. What was the total cost of the purchase? All right, so if I know I have short sleeve t-shirts and they are $15 each, and I need to buy 2 of them. And then I have shorts that are $18 each, and I'm going to buy 1 of those. And I have t-shirts that are $25 each, and I'm going to buy 3 of those. But I want to look at the math that I need to do, because it says the clothing is marked down to 3/4 of the original price. So 3/4 of the original means what? Well, right, we know that, as we talked earlier, 3/4 is 0.75, and we find 0.75 of the original. Well, what does of mean? Of means multiply, like we've talked about since the first month of school. So I'm going to I'm buying 2 of them. Notice I'm having larger parentheses, those brackets. So I'm going to show my math inside. I know the original cost was $15, but I'm only spending 3/4 of that. So I 0.75, 75 hundredths of it. And then I'm going to buy 2 of them. So that's why I'm multiplying that amount by 2 once I do the original multiplication. When it comes to the shorts, they originally cost $18, but I'm only going to spend 3/4 of that. So I have to figure out what that is, and I'm getting 1 pair. And then I'm going to have my $25 for the long t-shirts, but I'm still only being charged 75% of that, or 75 hundredths. So then I'm going to buy 3 of those. Once I find the answers inside of all the brackets, then I'm going to add them together. I'm going to figure out how much money I'm going to spend. So we have to do what's inside those parentheses first. So we have 15 times 0.75. We type that into our handy dandy calculator, and we see that that's $11.25. Then we'd have to multiply it by 2. On your handy dandy calculator, you type in 18 times 0.75, and what do you get? Well, you're going to get that that is 13.5, and for the shorts, therefore, you're buying 1 pair. And then we have to figure out how much we're being charged for the long sleeve t-shirts. $25 a piece. We're going to pay 3/4 of that, and 25 times 0.75 is $18.75. And I'm buying 3 of those. Now I still can't do my addition, because now I have to solve for how many I'm buying of each item. 2 times $11.25 gives me $22.50. And I'm going to add to that, well, 1 times 13.5 is still $13.50. But 3 of the long sleeve t-shirts at $18.75 a piece is $56.25. Then I want to add them together. I would stack them, line up my decimals, bring down my decimal, and add, but I will see that I get $92.25. That's a lot of money to spend on camp clothes. All right, so you have your assignment then. You can come to me and get it. You're going to be doing, once again, the evens for pages 275 and 276, but I will give you some extra space by printing them out on a piece of paper. If you have questions, come and ask, but please make sure you've taken your notes and listened to the lesson, and you go back and use all of the tools that I've given you to understand how to do your math with fractions and decimals and order of operations.